What's up, fam? So today we're gonna talk about. I watched this film like weeks ago, and I haven't been able to put something together. But I would just like I had to do it eventually because I think it's very well deserved. And the movie's one battle after another. And I heard a lot of, but there was a lot of buzz before this movie came out, and during the movie came out that the movie was amazing, right? Like, it was like masterful, and all these ideas were floating about, and all these opinions, right? And it was, at first I was just like, it's probably not that great, but it's like if it felt like there was overhype. But to be honest, all the hype was basically true. It's not one of the greatest films ever made or something like that, but the movie is amazing. It is a very high quality, almost perfectly done film. Like it's a specific style of film, so some parts might be slow, but then after a bit, it's like it's just so impressive, right? This is the sort of film that is like a whirlwind of of motion once it picks up, right? Once the film starts, right? Because this film is basically it's cut into two parts. The beginning section, which kind of sets up everything, you can almost see like a domino pieces coming together, right? Every idea that gets related, right, it starts reverberating down into the film. Like whatever you see in the beginning, right, it has a strong, strong setup, right? Because it needs to carry all of that to the rest of the film for what it's gonna do, right? It's very, very impressive, right? Um, there's like a 16-year gap between the film, right, when it begins and all the storytelling that comes about. And in that beginning, you're setting up the characters, right? You're setting up Leonardo DiCaprio. You're setting up Sean Penn and Tiana Taylor's character, which is the wife or girlfriend of Leonardo DiCaprio, right? And the three of them kind of build up the beginning of the film, so you can get a sense of what's going on. And it's a lot about talks about a lot about revolutionaries like left wing activism from a little bit like some decades past, not the modern ones, but it does touch upon those political subjects on the modern times. And it starts off like with an immigration rate, and from then on it sets up a lot of the pieces and the concepts that are going to be at play. And this is the sort of film, right, that if you went back and rewatch it and start grabbing pieces of like allegories, metaphors, concepts, and ideas, you can build up so much, right? Like you can build up so much from there. But the movie itself is not inherently political, even though you see a lot of it. That doesn't really matter because you can almost see like those politics at play from the beginning, right? At the beginning, it's very strong, then it kind of loses after a while. That doesn't really matter. Just you can always see like a feel, right? It's almost like an abstract that gives more power and more weight to the identity of a lot of the characters. Leonardo DiCaprio is part of the French group. I think it's the French 75, and it's almost like this not a militant group, right? I wouldn't say like that. They're hardcore activists. They're revolutionaries, right? Right. So they're trying to liberate people and fight liberation through politics and sometimes through violent aggression. Would you see that a lot? And all of that is made up so you can build the characters and their identities, right, and how they are driven by it. Leonardo DiCaprio's character, right, at the beginning feels like has a almost anti-hero type heroism, and then when you see the jump later in years, like the 16 year jump, he becomes like this sort of different character that still has all of that still within himself, but he has grown because now he has a daughter and he has to protect her. But a lot of the things from the past continue, they come back after all those years to almost chase him, right, and put him back into the aggressive mode from the beginning. Tiana Taylor, right, she's the girlfriend of Leonardo DiCaprio, and it's like you can say she's a more aggressive revolutionary, and she's there only for the beginning of the film, almost like a mother that incepts everything that will come from the film. And to put it like that, it is an inception from her. Like she's basically the cause of everything in the film, and how everything ends up leading. She's a very strong character as a person. When it comes for acting, I think she's probably one of, when you're dealing with Sean Penn, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Benicio del Toro's characters, maybe her strength weren't up there, but she still kept up with everybody, delivering a great performance. Everybody pretty much delivered a very great performance, including Leonardo DiCaprio's daughter. Her name is Chase Infinity. That's an incredible name. She's amazing. She does so well, right? Especially when you're dealing with like super high caliber actors. But the beginning, it's like a bunch of confrontations and setting up these predicaments, right? One of the big predicaments, or the main villain, is called Corner Lockjaw, who is Sean Penn. And he's the most, almost, he's such an awkward villain, but at the same time, it's almost like a walking dark comedy of existence, right? He's very comedic in essence, but it's still that evil within himself. It's not nihilistic, right? It's something almost goofy and filled with desire. But then when you start seeing him take action in what he wants to accomplish, you can see something so beyond cutthroat, right? Something that is like, I can just do whatever I want to do to accomplish it because that's the necessity or the desire that I need. And he ends up being entangled with Leonardo DiCaprio and Tiana Taylor's character at the beginning. Almost, he's a very big he's a very big force within their life, to say the least, right? And okay, that's the beginning of the film, right? And you do pick up a lot of pieces, and when you watch it, might be a little bit slow sometimes, and you kind of start wondering where this is going. But then there's a 16-year gap, dude. And after the 16-year gap, this film completely explodes. Like everything the tones, the characters, and everything that was set up, there's just so much payoff and execution afterwards for the next three chapters. For the next, three parts of the film, it is just incredible. It's like it's something that's constantly accelerating into itself. You go from scene to action, to consequences, to drama, and then the film knows when to slow itself down and then pick itself back up, so you get the full adrenaline of the emotions. You're in something so tense and suspenseful for the rest of the film. Like, it picks up incredibly well, and you always keeping up with it from every single character. Tiana Taylor kind of disappears after the beginning of the film because, circumstances. And then we pick up with Leonardo DiCaprio and his daughter. And Leonardo DiCaprio at this point is about, he's dealing with a lot of the past, so he's become sort of an alcoholic. But he's a protective father still, with the sense of that left-wing revolutionary politics that's trying to take down the big men, let's say, for example, like the other politics at play. And Lockjaw, the coroner, comes back into their life, and he's trying to take Leonardo DiCaprio's daughter for reasons, right? For a bunch of political reasons, that he himself is like, everything he does is for his own self-gain, which makes everything very dark, but is so relentless and vicious in what he wants to accomplish. You got to see like those three parts of the film, like the next section, right, the second section, as something that is just, there are two parallels working at play, right? One is Leonardo DiCaprio, and the other one is Lockjaw. Those are, let's say, the two main components of this idea, and both of them are being driven directly by one quest, which is to acquire the daughter, right? Leonardo DiCaprio's daughter. And the drama itself that is playing out in both sections is incredible, because in one side you have the villain just working out its plan to get to her, and in the other one is the salvation that Leonardo DiCaprio is trying to bring. So you see Leonardo DiCaprio like running through tunnels, meeting with a bunch of allies, escaping, wiring cars, driving fast, escaping cops when they come in, attacking the military at one point, a group of cops, and it's so frantic and fast, and everything has that like super weight to it, because it comes from a father trying to rescue his daughter. And in the other side, right, you have Lockjaw, who's going through almost something existential, that he has to get to the Leonardo's daughter to kill her, right? Or to do whatever he needs to. May not kill her, because most of the story is not like that until a certain point. But you just have that driven enemy that's present out there, just constantly chasing. So this film is like revolves around those two areas, right? It jumps back and forth, and through the Leonardo DiCaprio's daughter too, Willa, and her reaction to a lot of these things. So there's so much threats going around, so many moments of salvation, so many moments of escape. At one point, there's this big, huge immigration raid in a city. So you have these incredible cinematic pieces where Leonardo DiCaprio is jumping to the roof or being chased, and then he gets captured, so that he ends up escaping as well. This film really knows how it plays itself with momentum. Momentum is very important in this film, right? Because what you're doing right now is for the audience. You try to keeping it engaged, almost like a roller coaster, where it understands the dips that it has to take, and those dips are going to be fast and very strong. And it understands that there's a turn coming, so maybe it slows down the momentum, And in those cases, it might say, well, in this scenario, let's jump back to the villain to build up the villain even more, right? So you get an emotional response and drama. It's a I would say, dude, it's masterfully class. Like the third of the film, the last three quarters of the film are very masterfully done. I would say it's just so intelligent and vicious and once one not vicious, but calculated in its flow. It's almost rhythmically like you're watching like your music, right? Like you're listening to a really good musical track that wants to carry you along through every single piece, and everything understands itself. And also, right, the music in this movie is like almost, it feels sometimes like another character at times. It reminds me of The Good, Bad, and the Ugly, because when you have the final fight scene, right, the music itself carries the entire set piece, right? When you have the big confrontation between the ugly, the good, and the good, the bad, and the ugly, and that confrontation, the soundtrack, right, it makes up so much of the atmosphere in the arena that it almost becomes like a fourth character, right? And that's how it's always been viewed, like a fourth character that is bringing its presence into the film. This movie does that so well, especially in the chase sequences. In the chase sequences that happen quite a lot, you had this just tension playing over and over. It's like a violin line, like a string of violin. It just perfectly cut, and it continues, and as a watcher, right, and as an spectator, you're just sitting there calculative, waiting for what happens next. And I will say, because you're always waiting to see what happened next, because this is the sort of film that this is, right? You kind of don't know the future. You know that everybody has their ideas and identity, but there's not like this huge drama at play besides getting to the point. Sometimes waiting for stuff, I will say, can be, you get a bit like wondering. It's like, okay, where are we going with this, right? So kind of, you're not bored at the moment to say that, but it does make you wonder a bit, like at times. But it's not really that big of a criticism, right, or something like that. The film still, like, is just carrying you so precisely. Benicio del Toro is also in this film. He's an ally to Leonardo DiCaprio, so he helps a lot of times. Sometimes you get a different sense of who he is, but in general, he's a good person for Leonardo DiCaprio's entire quest to get to his daughter. And and Leonardo DiCaprio goes through a bunch of scenarios, and all of them have to do with like the same revolutionary people that are helping him, the left wing activists. At one point, it also speaks about, back in the older times, there was a certain activism that was very different for the newer times, and it sort of makes a joke out of it. But the film is like, it gives you a very good balance with everything that goes on. And Leonardo DiCaprio's performance too, right? This is a certain character that, if you were to have left it alone, right? Like not alone, what I'm saying, but if you were to have given it to another character, the character might have fallen flat in almost like one tone, and it wouldn't have shown so much of what it could have. Leonardo's able to elevate the character with his nuance. You start to feel something bigger, something that feels almost pure, right? And something that has because of the revolutionaries can be very violent and aggressive and all these ideas. He brings this sort of heart to everything and heroism. So it makes everything feel like, he's obviously the good guy, and it produces that from the character. But if I feel like if you have given it another person, right, that wouldn't have had that caliber of execution, you would not have you would not have gotten the same perspective, right? You wouldn't have feel that strength from this character. And Leonardo goes through a bunch of stuff in this film, right? Like he's just running in like a constant war. It's basically it's one battle after another, which it truthfully is. You're constantly battling against different subjects. Sometimes it could be something dramatic that has to do with the villain, something that has to do with Leonardo, obviously, the daughter as well, and the drama that comes in play. There's this big standoff at a church, at a convent, and that is also like, you feel it palpable in your heart because something deep is about to happen. And then you have some revelations there that are just so groundbreaking that you're like, it switches the movie, and it gives you like this strong feeling. But then the movie still continues. And it continues right from there to the final third act. I think this film has one of the strongest third acts I've seen, that is just so powerful. It is absolutely relentless. Like, if the film was all about momentum, right? Like, it kept carrying you. then it had to get somewhere, and it does that magnificently. Like the third act is this huge race and this huge chase between the two willpowers, right? The willpower of Leonardo DiCaprio and the willpower of the villain Lockjaw. And both of them, even though they're not meeting with each other, you can feel the intensity between the two fighting to get to their destination. And as the film progresses, you just feel it at every turn. The car chases is it's incredible. There's one final chase sequence too that I must say it right now. I think it's gonna be when you look back at cinema. This is one of those chase sequences that you have to call that this was incredibly done because of the tension that was at play. It takes place in the desert in these long highways, and and this final chase sequence happens after another chase sequence that kept going back and forth and twisting and turning. So after as the song progresses and has given you all this architecture, once you get to the final stretch, it's just a dash for the end, right? Just rushing, and it just everything has gotten so accelerated at that point. And it's magnificent too, because when you have something like that, right, you're like, okay, then the chase has to come to a conclusion. And when it comes to a conclusion, again, it gives you something wonderful to end it with, right? It says, okay, let's add something clever and super interesting and say, this is where where the chase sequence ends. But then it gives you something else that says, okay, this is how we wrapped it up. It was very, very well done. The actress Chase Infinity too, right? Her name is Willa. After she gets captured, right? Like as the movie progresses, you see more of her interactions, more of her drama, more of her acting power. And there's moments where she's with Sean Penn, and you can just feel that she's very, very great at what she does. All the way up to the final sequence where the villains meet with each other, or like the circumstances that come to play. It's an incredible pacing of a movie. Like when I walked out of it, right, this is one of those films that, it leaves something within you. But what it leaves within you is not something that is like something thoughtful, philosophical, things like that. This movie leaves you with a hole in your chest because you just experience something filled with like so much intense emotions that you're like, wow. Like you just sit there and ponder everything. And it ends up pretty well too afterwards. Like I think the ending was pretty well done, how everything played out. Some stuff maybe a little bit like where the story elements and where ideas come into play maybe could have been different. I think right at the end, right? Like this is the closing sequence. But overall, it's like you couldn't have that. Like it's an incredible film. Again, the actors were just amazing, right? Sean Payne, the main villain, Lockjaw, Connor Lockjaw. Well, wow, like it's an impressive villain. Like this is something that is like, it has a certain depth to it. It has a certain character that's like I said, it was dark. It's like a certain dark comedy that walks around. So you kind of you take it as something not funny, man, but it's like a combination of something that's awkwardly calculative and cold, but at the same time, there's something like just so broken about him that makes it almost laughable. But you don't ever experience that much of that because of the evilness that's in front of you. Leonardo DiCaprio too. It's like when you reach the ending, it's just a protective father getting to his daughter, so he carries all that momentum throughout. The politics, like I said, it was just like they were there, and you see and you hear a lot of, and you see it from both sides too sometimes. But once you get down to it, it's like that's just so irrelevant. And what they speak about, sometimes you're just like both of the sides are kind of like aggressively dumb or in their views of some ideas, or like they're very destructive in themselves. But that's none of that matters, dude, because this is a film about momentum and acceleration. I think everybody should watch it. Like it's just so good, and I'm pretty sure once you watch it, it starts slowly. You're gonna love it. Like the rest of it is one of those films that you will always be able to tell somebody to watch it, and they always come back to be like, "Wow, that was incredible." That's how this film is gonna be viewed. That's about it, fam. Thank you very much. GG's.